My name is Martin 1. I was born in the city of Kassel, Germany, and I'm a survivor.
Okay, now the first part we want to talk about, Martin, is your early life. So, hobbies, friends.
You have to
school.
speak loud. I have a little hearing problem.
All right. The first part we'll talk about is your early life. So, friends, hobbies, school, hanging out, brothers, sisters. You could talk about your mom and dad, give me like that biographical information. So, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I grew up in the city of Kassel, a beautiful little town surrounded by mountains, which offered opportunities to go hiking and in the winter to sled and ski. And life was pretty easy in my early days. But things, of course, changed pretty soon. And I could no longer go to public school, so the congregation established a parochial school, which I attended, and was, of course, then with just Jewish boys and girls. However, the Nazi era was beginning to exert pressures on the other youths in other schools. And so when school let out, the bullies from the high school would plant themselves around our school, and as we got out at the end of the day, they would attack us and throw stones at us and try to beat us up. But we learned to run rather quickly. However, these boys were faster and older than we, and so I took my share of beatings in the course of each week and so on.
Okay. Now, when you were, so you're born in 1925.
Yeah.
If you could you tell me about your friends, the guys you went to your parochial school with, what you guys like to do in your spare time?
Well, we kind of like to play soccer, and the school sponsored that, and so we would go out every opportunity we had and played soccer. I was also a pretty good runner, and so there was a Jewish athletic club called Bar Kochba, and I was entered in the short distance runs, and I was pretty quick, and I was able to be successful at that. I also, on Sundays, was the usual day for the family outing. We went up into the mountains and primarily hiked and explored. And our aim was generally to find a certain spring that had very clear, cold water. And when we found that, that was a triumph of sorts. And of course, I was with my brother and sister, and so it was kind of tag along. And we had very pleasant Sundays in the forest. However, we did not have a car, and so you went into the forest by trolley. The trolley took you right to the foot of the mountain, and from there, it was a park-like setting. You would explore and hike on your own.
Could you tell me about school? What was your favorite subject? Did you like going to school, or did you not like going to school? Were you good at it?
Well, I wasn't the most enthusiastic school kid, but we went. There was no question about it, and I had friends and neighbors, and especially friends that didn't live too far from where we lived, so we could back and forth visit and play games together. There weren't any playgrounds. We played on the streets, on the residential streets that didn't have much traffic. You had to be kind of very wealthy to own a car in Germany at that time, and very few people had cars. Everybody took public transportation, which was adequate in our town. You could get almost anywhere by trolley, and that was the standard. So you played on the streets, stickball and all kinds of things, and I think it was a fairly normal childhood. Primarily, however, only among Jewish boys and girls, because the others were beginning to become associated with the Hitler Youth Program, and they were not inclined to play with Jewish boys and girls.
Excellent. Can you talk to me just quickly about your mom and dad? What your mom did, what your dad did?
My dad was a doctor who had a very big medical practice in the city of Kassel, And my mom actually was the laboratory assistant. She did urine tests and other tests, and also helped develop the X-rays and electrocardiograms, so that she was very involved in assisting Dad in the medical practice. He also had other nurses to assist him and secretaries to take care of the paperwork involved in it. So we lived in the same building as the medical practice, so we saw a lot of the patients as they came in and went, and got to know some of them.
Excellent. Okay, so what we'll do now is transition to that 1933 part,
Yeah.
where the Nazis take over. Talk about what it was like for you growing up. You're talking about losing friends, changes in school, changes to your father's practice, so on and so forth. And again, as much as you want, or as little as you want.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
Oh, once I got out of elementary school, there wasn't a high school in Kassel I could go to. So my folks made an arrangement for me to go to a Jewish high school in the city of Frankfurt. And patients of my dad's had moved to Frankfurt, and they happened to live near that high school, and they were taking in neighbors as a way of help them make a living, actually. So I stayed with those people whom I had met before they left Kassel to live in Frankfurt. And I went to the Philanthropien. That was the name of the Jewish high school in Frankfurt. And I attended there and was there until the time that we immigrated to come to this country. Now, the immigration process was very complicated in those days. You had to file papers. You had to have someone in the United States who would vouch for you financially so that you would not become a burden to the state. And so we had my family had a friend, an American couple who came to visit relatives in the city of Kassel annually. And once the man got ill while he was visiting his family here, and they called my dad in, and they got to know each other, and since they came back every year, they became friendly and began to socialize together while they were here. And when we had to consider where to go because the Nazi menace was becoming unbearable, my dad wrote to this woman in New York asking her if there's some way he could save his children from the possible impending danger. And she said, "Why don't you all want to come?" And he said, "Well, of course we want to all come, but we couldn't put that burden on you." She said, "Oh, that's no problem at all. I'll provide the affidavit for you." And that's how we were able to come to the United States.